Okay, so let's talk about past lives. So some people do not even believe in past lives because they don't even know that they've had one. They can't completely access that information or even know that they've had them. And others are completely sure and have access to these things. So I just want to talk a little bit about why that may be and some surface level conversation for the most part about past lives, because all of this is actually stored inside of us in our DNA. This holds the library, which is the Akash, the Akashic records. Our DNA is a storage of all kinds of information, and this is past lives included. Now, keep in mind that our DNA also houses our ancestors. Our DNA is an accumulation of all kind of stuff. So it's like a storage or like a computer chip. So I actually, honestly, personally kind of feel like that is also what our cell phones are holding. So that can be scary to think about, but to each their own. So, ultimately there are higher forces that grant us access to this information. So how much access we have to this information is ultimately overseen by higher forces. So some may have more access to this information and know for a fact that we have had other past lives, etc., because they have access to this information. Now, that's if somebody doesn't have access to that information, so they're not sure if they believe in it or not, it is, they weren't meant to have that information or yet at this time or in this lifetime even, because it doesn't do any justice for their path. So another reason might be how many life cycles one has had. It's kind of like levels, like say somebody's on life cycle 3 and somebody's on life cycle 10 or 11. A more advanced soul will have access to much more information than others, and that might be past lives, but that doesn't necessarily mean that an advanced soul, all advanced souls have access to past lives. It's to each their own, and when that information is to be delivered. However, everything is happening past and future, and now it is all like simultaneously. It is all at the same time. So really, when we are tapping into our past or our future, ultimately it is kind of just accessing another plane or dimension, I guess, but we can channel that information, but we will get like downloads or visuals or messages or visuals through dreams. So we can sometimes and often the best way to try to access this information is through meditation, and you can also set that intention or ask for information even about other stuff or past lives before sleep, and you may get messages in dreams. So ultimately, since this information is being channeled, or if we are asking for any information at any time, or if we like to travel in sleep or with dreams, and through meditation, when we are asking for this information, or also, well, hold on one second. So if anytime we're asking for this information, we need to protect ourselves and ask that we are also only getting this information from our higher self or whatever your source is. It is important to definitely make a point that that is the only place the information is coming from, because there are other channels that or places that we can get information that might not be true. So it is important to use a bit of discernment and take sometimes things with a grain of salt and make sure that it is coming from the right source. So past life regression therapy can be highly helpful in this. I know that can be done like with hypnosis, but if it is coming through someone else channeling, but also even yourself, it is also important to make sure that it is the proper channels are being accessed and not something else or someone else's. But a lot of times we are just organically given this information. So with the an awakening and the shift that's happening on the planet, more DNA is being activated that is being called dormant. I think like science calls it like junk DNA, but also our energy centers are clearing. So when these energy centers clear, more information can come into us. So, or come to us. So it is really, really important to keep a clean vessel, and low vibrational food and processed food blocks these energy centers and this information from coming in. So anything processed, low vibrational, which is high vibrational food, is going to be more fresh food and more live food. So the more you are eating like that, the more you will be able to access, and your vibration will be high enough, and this information can come in. And so it is really important to practice clean eating and, really, really consider where we're getting our information from, and to make a point of this, because all of this is stored inside of us. So with an awakening, more people are going to get more information or downloads, and also with what was I going to say? I'll have to come back to that, but we are all ultimately born pretty woke. So you may have heard also that a lot of kids are getting more information these days, or verbalizing it more. A lot of kids are being born more woke and activated, and they're going to ultimately remain far more activated even through growing up, while typically not with everybody, and everybody's path is different, but we're all born being able to see things and hear things and access to knowledge that we don't have once we grow up, and we took on all this other information, and our pineal gland sort of closes up a little bit more, and bad food and all kind of reasons, we typically often can remember a lot of stuff, or see other things and hear other things, and etc. Up until around age 3 or so. And that is not an exact age for everybody, but that is just when often around that time period it really starts to close up, and then gradually throughout growing up. Well, a lot of kids these days are going to remain more activated, so you may hear of them remembering more past lives than the average person, just like all of us as adults when awakening. Typically we'll be able to even have more interest in it. In addition, we'll get access to it, but we only get access to it and when it's going to be beneficial to us and our path. So, if it's something that is hard to access, you can keep working on it through meditation. That's not the easiest stuff to access, but we also aren't overall given this information because our all of it, because our past lives, there are some very, very painful past lives. We are not supposed to remember them. There's been a lot. So when information is granted access to, it is because it'll be beneficial at that time. And everybody's journey is different. This is a journey that we are to go through to advance our soul. So if it's time to advance, we might get more information, but the thing is that we repeat these cycles over and over and over, and not only in this lifetime, but into our next lifetime, until we have learned the lesson that our soul needs to learn. So this information helps for clarification also, because we continue to do it until we stop doing it. So we find ourselves in the same situations for the same lesson, or and often not even the same situation, but it's the same lesson needing to be learned with different people throughout this lifetime until we get that lesson. But if we don't get it this lifetime, we do it with different people in the next lifetime until we understand what our soul is supposed to understand. There's often multiple lessons within one lifetime, but some main ones, we can find some of these things in our birth chart. I did make one video also about North Node and South Node. We typically, a lot of like the industry or interests that we go into, or the interests that we have in this lifetime, are what we were doing in a past lifetime. So I think I labeled it like fate versus destiny, but your south node and your north node, your south node is what you were doing in a past life. Sometimes that means past life in this lifetime though, but we were doing it from a past life, which is why it came so easily into it in this lifetime until it's time for our poles to shift from south node to north node. So the poles have been shifting of our planet. We've had a lot of crazy stuff go on actually, but this is also something that happens based on on a person's path to when it's their time. And sometimes that happens a lot in people's 30s. It can happen at any time. Every person's is different, but we did just have a big shift too. So the south node and the north node are in complete opposite of the wheel. So when we are to go, we will feel called to go to the north node, like destiny, basically, but it is always the complete opposite of what we were doing before, what our south node is. So it is really terrifying to take that leap because we're not familiar with that. It is what we haven't done before. So if we also don't break that cycle, guess what we are doing again in the next lifetime. So this really is all about cycles and cycles repeating. So, there's a lot to it, and karma and etc. But, a lot of, we do store our ancestors' DNA within us too. So it's really important to be able to decipher and process what is ours and what is others. But ultimately, anything in our DNA is ours. It's for us anyways. So past lives. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I want to cover today. So the information is granted to us when it is supposed to be by higher forces, but we can meditate and hold a clean diet to try to activate more of this, and work on like dreaming and within sleep. But this can come throughout the day at times if you get flashes, and we are always drawn to things from our past life throughout this lifetime. It can be like a certain type of music or a song even. Oh, there's something else I wanted to say too, but also if like we are hobbies and interests, if we are really into motorcycles or something, there are certain things you will find throughout your life you feel really drawn to, and that is of course with people too. So a lot of times souls can recognize and are familiar that they knew each other in a past life. So like I said, typically more advanced souls will remember more about all kind of other things. So when a lot of people who are really stuck on, say, like religion or certain things don't believe that these things are even true and accessible, it's not to down them that they are, just there's different levels or every cycles, and we all have to pass through all of them. So a more advanced soul was at that level at some point too. It's everything always comes full circle. So it's not to down anybody that doesn't know anything, and the people about certain things, and the people who aren't familiar with these things existing and think it's like wrong. It doesn't make the people that do know crazy or evil. It's just that they are familiar with it, because that's the level or the cycle that, you know, that soul's on. So that's really important to remember. But what I was going to say is that, you know, a lot of times if you feel drawn to things like, if you think you were like Abraham Lincoln in the past or something like that, certain things. So this is why I say to take certain things that you are getting information from, especially from somebody else, but even your own visuals sometimes, or certain things you're getting at all. Any type of information you're getting is some form of channeling. It doesn't necessarily mean that you were that person in a past life, but you could have been alive during that time where it was a significant factor in a time period of a past life. So you may be drawn to certain things about certain idols or certain other things that we are drawn to. So just keep in mind, sometimes if it's not an exact visual of a certain happening in your life, sometimes these energies and things that we are picking up on and feel really drawn or tied to from a past life, sometimes it might just be the energy of the experience or of something that we experienced in a past life. So I think that is pretty much going to cover what I wanted to talk about today in past lives, but I will likely be making other videos about other cool stuff, including past lives. So definitely let me know if you like this video, and I will be making more. And of course, if you think anybody else will find this information interesting, you know, pass that on to others. So I will catch you guys later.